everybody, and welcome to the Public Healthpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Quisha, member, the Public Healthpreneur. Now, I know you're not used to seeing my face, but this is a special podcast series on mental health and entrepreneurship, and I'm super excited to get into this series. If you've been tuning in, then you know you've just heard the first episode a couple of days ago on World Mental Health Day, where I shared my story of mental health and entrepreneurship. I'm super excited today to be interviewing my good friend, Alisa Howard. Alisa, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm wonderful, which I wasn't a few months ago, and I'm so happy to say I'm wonderful today. Look,
Yes.
thank you so much for taking me on the offer. So I kind of put it out there and said, I'd love to talk about this topic, mental health and entrepreneurship. And several people, without even thinking twice about it, were like, I would love to share my story. And I think you were one of the first or second people to do that. So I'm so glad to have you and to just share this vulnerable topic. And it's surprisingly so many people, and I say so many, maybe 5 or 6, which I think is still a good number of people were like, oh my God, this is so me. Like, oh, I have
But
anxiety,
people
or
don't
oh, I
talk
have it.
about it.
Nobody talks about such a shame, such a stigma. And I think that's part of the reason, I don't have any services around this. I don't have any kind of what do you call it? Any products. I don't have anything around this. I'm not trying to sell y'all that are watching and listening. I'm not selling you anything. I'm doing this is because this is something that affected me. And in almost 5 years of business, I had never went through something like that before. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like when you work for yourself, by yourself, and it's just, and you
And
the
it
boss,
eventually had to happen. It
uh,
eventually had to
it
happen.
had to happen. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. It had to happen. So with that being said, let's get into our conversation. I know they're going to get a lot out of it. First things first, tell us about your business, how long you've been in business, and all those things we need to know about you.
So my name is Alisa Howard. I call myself the accidental public health advocate because I accidentally got into this field 12 years ago and I stayed, obviously. My business is Minority Health Consultants, and I do everything around marginalized communities. My work and focus is on minorities, marginalized communities, which does include women, children, mental health, behavioral health, but also just all things that are health disparities within those communities. So I help stakeholders bridge the gap between them and the communities that they want to serve but don't know how to serve. So I just come in as that consultant to them. I do program development for them. I do CHW. I'm a CHW instructor, so I do workforce around CHW work. And yeah, that's just kind of who I am. Just infectious disease and chronic disease is my background of how I got into public health, and I just kind of incorporate all of the things because I love to call myself a multidimensional human being, and I love to bring all of that and all of myself into my work.
I love it. I always say multi-passionate overachiever, which
Yes,
is a blessing and a curse,
it
as
is a blessing and
sure
curse.
you are aware of. So I love that you call yourself the accidental public health advocate. We're going to get into that a little bit later. I want to jump right into the purpose of our conversation. Tell me, in the 12 and a half years, you said 12 and a half years in
12
business?
and a half years.
In
Not
business.
in business, 12 and a half years in public health,
In
six and
public
a half
health.
years in business.
6.5 years in business. Kudos to you, first of all, because it is
Yes,
not for the faint.
it
It
is
is
not for
not
the
for the
faint.
weak. So that is to be commended. Actually, was just researching that 45% of businesses don't make it to year 5. So that is
Yes,
a blessing in
yes.
itself and a reason to celebrate. So 6.5 years in business. What type of public health challenges have you experienced as an entrepreneur?
Public health challenges. Oh, Jesus. There could be a whole list on this topic. People not working together, people wanting to work in silos, people wanting to be the one that does everything health equity. We all do health equity in our work in some type of way. So it's really been the people more so the community, which is very interesting to me. Other service lines of industries don't have these type of issues. When I talk to my friends back in my paralegal world or my legal world where I came from, they're just like, girl, the stuff that you tell me about is the people that's in your industry are toxic. And I'm like, go figure. And they're in public health. They're supposed to be helping the public. So I would say more so just the public health professionals themselves, racism within public health, the people who are supposed to be changing health disparities, seeing racism right in front of my face, hearing bias and stereotypes. I don't go to that community. Oh, I don't go over to that area. Just things like that. So I would say my public health career has been a blessing, and it has also been a curse because God has allowed me to see the good and the bad.
Oh, I want to talk about that. So So, okay, I think I asked you about public health challenges, and I should have said mental health challenges, but I'm glad that you got into that. That's not the purpose of this conversation, but I do plan on doing a whole podcast season
Well,
on the
let's wrap that
culture.
around because those things that I just named
Yes.
go into your mental health.
Okay, okay, let's do that. But I want to put a little notch in the belt for those that are listening and watching this. Our organizational culture, we've got to do better. And so when I wrote my book, I talked about leaving a culture where nurses ate their young, thinking I was coming to a better culture. And then I don't know what quote or how I can describe it, but the quote in the culture in public health was not better than it was in nursing. And so you just described, just a snippet of some of the things that we have experienced working in the public health setting as well for different organizations and even for ourselves as external consultants. So, all right, so make that connection for me from dealing with people to now the mental health challenges you may have experienced during your entrepreneurial journey.
So a lot of people have left the public health and healthcare field in general because of their mental and behavioral health being affected by not only the pandemic, but people, right? The bureaucracy of public health, the politics in public health. So all of the things that I mentioned wrapped into my mental health. These are the things that have caused me to burn out. People in the field have caused me to burn out, not the people that we actually need to go help. I love going and teaching. They want to soak up the information once they see that they can trust you and all those things. But can I trust my colleague? It's been a mental health. I just say entrepreneurship in general has been a mental health challenge in itself.
Wow. So when you think about the conditions, right? So, when I share my story, I'm talking about depression, I'm talking about grief, sorry, I'm talking about loss. So when you put into words the struggle with mental health, would you say those were anxiety, stress, and burnout?
Anxiety, stress, and burnout. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay, and how did those manifest? And when did you realize? Like, was it for me? It was almost like, oh, I'm about to have nervous breakdown. But is it something you realized right away? Did it take you a while? And then how did it manifest? Physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, whatever that looks like. How did it manifest in your life?
So I would say so the stress was just constantly there, just starting a business, trying to understand business. People don't get that. You have to, if you are not a business major, you've never owned a business before, you don't come from a business family, you have to learn business first. So while you're learning business and trying to incorporate your skill sets into this business, people are pulling on you. People are asking you, luckily for me, I've never had to write a grant or anything. People just have given me grants, but that's also stress, right? Like, oh, you want to be everything to everyone. So stress manifested in that way, just kind of naturally, because it was like, I'm still trying to learn business. I'm still trying to learn how to be a CEO. And here comes these grants, which is a beautiful thing. But at the same time, you're learning. It's like you're flying the plane and learning at the same time how to fly that plane. So that was the stress, right? And then stress is just a chronic thing that happens in entrepreneurship. I think you can manage it. I think you can eliminate some things that for sure cause you stress, that you can identify. But that's the thing. You have to take the time and be able to have the time to identify those things. Anxiety manifested. I didn't even know anxiety. I knew what anxiety was. I never had an anxiety attack. I've never experienced anxiety to my knowledge until the pandemic. The pandemic showed us so many things, right? But it really showed entrepreneurs, especially if you were one of those people that your state was calling on, or your universities or public health entities were calling on, anxiety of just, are we going to die? You want me out there giving education about this pandemic? Am I going to get a hazmat suit? So anxiety just naturally came because of the pandemic, but I would say that it manifested and stayed along the last couple of years. And then just burnout. I say stress and anxiety leads to burnout, because the anxiety itself of, can I get everything done? Can I be everything to everybody? But also, can I help save the country and the world right now, whilst I'm still trying to be a good boss to myself as my own business, running my own business. And so burnout comes from all that. You have all of this stuff going on in your head, in your brain, while you're still also trying to help get on every webinar, get on this and teach
Oh,
people.
girl.
People pulling at you. You right? burnout
Signed
happened.
up for 30 webinars and made me go to 3.
Oh my gosh. When I say burnout was real and I did not realize it until 2023. So the pandemic obviously started in 2020. 2023, it's like I just fell. I just fell out, mentally. Not in a physical sense, but there was just something that was dead inside of me.
Wow.
And I knew that I either need to get out of public health, but then what else am I going to do? I've been doing this for 12 years. How can I pivot my business? So I did do that. But I was so tired. It was no amount of sleep could help. And that's when you know that it's more than just stress and anxiety.
Oh,
It's
let's stop right there. I love you. You said no amount of sleep can help.
no amount.
I love that. There are so many things that you said there. I didn't want to interject, but I heard you say being everything to everybody. And I cannot negate the fact that we're both Black women.
Yes.
So I just want to bring this up because I think, hopefully the listeners and viewers have heard about the Superman or Superwoman syndrome, right? And as Black women, as women generally, but certainly for Black women, we tend to be nurturers, we tend to be caregivers, we tend to put everybody before us,
Absolutely.
and then we're last. And that like does not equate to being a CEO and being self-employed at all. And so I definitely feel all the things you said about stress and how that manifests, trying to take on all of those things. And you also touched on anxiety. I have had patients when I was nursing that had anxiety. I've got family members and friends that have anxiety.
Yeah.
Never had what I thought, like you, was anxiety. Couple of things started happening for me. So one day I'm sitting up in bed, I think I'm eating popcorn, and I've been binge watching. Now, no judge zone here, no judgment zone. Binge watching my serial killer documentaries that I love. And
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, I feel like, and I don't know what was, nothing caused it. I'm having a full-fledged panic attack in my bed.
Wow.
Feels like I'm about to have a heart attack. I can't catch my breath. And it goes on for probably 3 minutes before my nurse brain kicks in to say, Quisha, you're having a panic attack. So then
Oh,
to your point, once I identify what was happening, I'm taking some deep breaths. I realize I'm clenching the sheets on the bed and I'm like, okay, I finally calm myself down and I'm like, OMG, I just had a panic attack. Now, for me, it was idiopathic. So in
yeah.
healthcare, that's a term that means there was no cause for it because I watch serial killer documentaries all the time, right?
Right.
But it gave me so much more empathy for people that I know experience generalized anxiety disorder and panic attacks on the regular. It was scary. And thankfully I was at home. I was safe. It was in my bed. Nobody was there in my bedroom. But some people do that out in public, or they do that before they have to speak, or they do that. And so imagine trying to run a business, but you have that type of anxiety. That was probably the first kind of precursor. The
Yes.
second is, and you know this, I have this condition where I pass out on like 50% of the flights that I'm on.
Yes.
And so, of course, I had all the checks. I went to cardiology, I went to neurology, and ended up being diagnosed after the EEG and everything else came out negative, being diagnosed with situational anxiety. I'm not afraid to fly. I fly every month. However, he says that people manifest anxiety differently. That's how I manifest anxiety. The third thing, as a CEO and entrepreneur, you're constantly doing a lot of stuff, right? You know me, I do all the things if I don't, put some boundaries around myself.
Yes.
So I thought, well, maybe I have this need to just do all the things. Maybe that's ADD. So I saw a psychotherapist and she did the test and the screening and she came back and was like, no, you don't have ADD. You just have anxiety. I was floored. Do you hear me?
Wow.
Floored that was the diagnosis that she gave me. And I won't get into that. I won't hog up all of your time, but I
Right.
just wanted to share these examples to let people know that anxiety manifests in a
In
lot of
different
different
ways.
ways, and you may not even be realizing some of the things that you're doing, and the behaviors that you're displaying could actually be anxiety. So
So physically, mine manifested in my shoulders and constant chronic pain of my shoulders and neck. So I would go days without being online because that's what the chiropractor thought it was. Like, oh, everybody's, is on these webinars on Zoom all the time. Your neck is constantly doing this. And then I would take a week off and I would go to him to see like what's going on. Like, is it, does it feel better? Is it better? And he would just be like, I think you have constant something going on constantly that's in your, like, that's just kind of coming out of your shoulders and your neck area. Did some testing and all those things. I go to a massage every week. He's like, there's no way that you should go to a massage every week. Now keep in mind, I was getting a massage maybe once a month for the last 5 years. From 2023 to now, I have to get a massage. I have to get a massage every week because of how much anxiety and stress sits on my shoulders and in my neck. And he was doing all the things. He did all the machines and all this. And he was just like, this is internal. This is internal. There's something internally going on with you. And he was like, I would suggest that you eliminate the stress, the anxiety, the things that are going on with you. He said, because I've done all the physical testing, but it's coming out of you in different ways. So when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I did get told that.
Yes, physical manifestation of it. Wow. Wow. Okay, so you talked about anxiety and stress leading to burnout. Can you
Yes.
just kind of tell me what burnout, and you said it wasn't a physical burnout. I love that you said that it was just however you described it. Go a little bit more into that and tell me if like the burnout caused other things for you or impacted your life in other ways, personally and professionally.
Oh yeah, it was definitely physical burnout. It was emotional, psychological, and physical burnout for sure. Like I said, no amount of sleep that you could get or that I was getting was refreshing me, re-energizing me. It was just allowing me to go through the next day. That's all it was doing. And I did not understand what was going on with me because I've never been this type of person. I've never been an anxious person. I've never been a stressed out person. I'm usually very, cool. Things get on my nerves. I'll be like, I'm done, walk away. But it was just, what is this? What is going on? Am I going to close my business? Like, I really came to these conclusions. Am I going to get out of public health? I started looking up different degrees that I can go back to school and get. I started thinking about other ways that I can make money in the meantime while I finish these degrees. I thought about closing my business or just pivoting altogether and just shutting that one down and starting something different. I went through and I was like, what is going on with me? So it was like also thinking of quitting. It was quitting. It was quit, just quit, just quit.
Because
I was like, what is that?
you associated being a public health entrepreneur with all of these things that were going on.
Yes. Because
Ah.
I knew that I was overwhelmed,
Mhm.
right? But I kept telling myself in the beginning, you're blessed. God has blessed you. Like you're thinking about it in a negative way, and God wouldn't have that for you. So also spirituality and our religion sometimes can make us feel like we're supposed to stay in something and that it's God's will because he's blessed us with this contract. But God says that he has not given us anything, fear or anything that will cause us harm to us. So if this contract is causing you harm, that is not, yes, I may have blessed you with it, but now it's your responsibility to have, self-care for
Set
yourself.
some boundaries around
Some
that thing.
boundaries. Yes, because I've also given you the tools to learn these things and to be a conduit for yourself to learn through my word, right? So I think we get as Christians, I think you're a Christian as well, but spiritual people in general, we get bogged down with the anxiousness of, are we doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Would God have me to quit this business that he's blessed me with for all of these years?
Yeah. Girl, now we could start a whole nother conversation on this topic. I mean, I could go so many ways on this because a lot of times as a believer, I think I'm doing things and I realize after the fact I'm way out of alignment with God's will. And that's why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling about certain things now. So, but
Yes.
not to go there, I want to, to your point, oh, you know what? I'm gonna skip there too. I want to ask you this question because I'll get too deep and I want to stay really kind of surface.
Okay.
Um, you talked about how all of these things affected you, but did any of this stuff affect your close family and friends
Yep.
and just relationships in general?
Absolutely. It affected my relationships. I step back. I didn't call people as much. I didn't check in on people as much. I'm a I'm a not a caregiver, but I care about people. I'm in public health. I care about the well-being of my friends, and I nourish relationships. People have always said that I have friends from third grade, kindergarten, seventh grade, because I'm that person that I'm going to check in on you. I'm going to call you. I'm going to like your stuff on Facebook and social media and tell you how great you are and all those things. And I stopped kind of doing that. And then I started feeling guilty, right? I started feeling like, oh, I'm not being there for people. But then I was wondering, like, how can I be there for everybody else? And I'm not even here mentally for myself right now. I'm literally just on kind of autopilot, just living life, waking up every day, doing these Zooms, doing these webinars, what's on my calendar today. But in the meantime, still trying to stay connected. That's what we think social media does for us, right? That's what we think our phones do for us. But really, connection is the reciprocity that you feel between you and your friends and your family members. And if you're not getting that back, it's hard to give it out. But I was just like not giving it out at all, and then getting mad at people for not giving it back to me, or not liking my stuff, or not, contacting me and seeing how I'm doing. But it was really more so of this bigger picture thing that was going on. It was the stress, it was the anxiety, it was me feeling tired. Exhaustion is actually the word, not tired. Exhausted, and still trying to, again, be everything to everybody else. And at some point I just had to disconnect. I got off of social media for like 4 months, and it was probably the best 4 months of my life. And now I do that every time. I was not ever taking any vacations in my business. Now I take the whole month of December off every single year for the last 2 years, and I take the month of June or July, just depends, off. And I was never doing that before. So the last 2 years has totally changed my life.
I love that. This was the first year that I took August off, and I say off meaning we didn't take any clients. We had a couple of contracts that we closed down. We didn't do anything extra. I
Yeah.
was but 100% off as a self-employed business owner.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can do that 100% off, right? But it was instrumental. I plan on doing the same thing again in December, just like you said. But I want to talk about something that you mentioned there, because it almost seems like you have to give yourself grace, one, and permission, two, when you are a social person, right? When you are, like you said, you are the person that calls and checks in, right? You're that type of friend. People know you to be that type of person.
Yeah.
Was it a struggle for you to pull back? Or and what was that process like to give you permission and say, hey, I need it. I can't pour into another person until I withdraw and isolate and pour into myself to get myself back to 100%.
I wouldn't say it was hard. It was just not available. I
Mhm.
had nothing in the bank account. I was totally withdrawn we're talking about bank accounts. I was totally withdrawn, had insufficient funds. So when you have insufficient funds, no matter what, you can't pull from it and give it to anybody. So it wasn't hard in that sense because it wasn't there. It just could not come out. I could not send that text or call that person or go around my family as much as I wanted to. And my parents, they still talk about me to this day. My dad actually calls me and he'll be like, oh, you answered the phone. He's like, welcome back to Africa. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Why do you always say this? He's like, because you disappeared on us. And he brings it up as, being funny, but also it tells me that he did feel some type of separation, because I go to my parents' house at least once a week, I have 2 sets of parents. So it's very, I have to stretch my time out. So I try to visit them at least once a week. They're getting older. And for, I would say, a good 6 months, I just was like popping in and out every blue moon. It wasn't consistent. They were used to me being consistent. And I wasn't that person, that child of theirs that they could call on, because I am the first child as also, right? So that's a whole nother level.
Thing.
And I'm that one that they usually can call on. And I was not available. I would be like, I would either not respond or I'm tired. I can't, because work was taking everything out of me, everything. And my dad told me one day, you are doing some amazing things. He said, but you can't let this stuff kill you. He said, I've just noticed your personality. You know, you're always lively. You come around, you checking on us. You haven't been doing that. Are you okay? And for my dad to acknowledge that, it meant a lot. One, because that generation does not acknowledge anxiety and burnout and all those things. And he's the last one to talk. He's 69, still working, and we keep telling him to retire. But he noticed the change in me, and I appreciated that.
Wise words. Like, you're doing great work, but it can't kill you.
Right. He's
And
like, I see you all on TV. You're doing great. He said, we're very proud of you. He said, but you're different. Something's changed about you. He was like, it's like your personality has kind of changed. And I did notice that. I'm a social butterfly by nature, but even when I was being social, I wasn't being social, if that makes sense. I was physically there, but mentally and behaviorally, I just was like,
And I think for people, and I will attest, I do believe you are a social butterfly. Did you find that when you were forcing it, it made you more exhausted?
yes. When
I
I
tell
tell you
people,
one event, I would go home and be asleep till 10 o'clock the next morning.
yes, I tell people that all the time. Like, I think I'm a social introvert, and I think the older I get, that exhibits more. I can go to networking events and do things, and it's like being a politician. I'll smile and shake hands and kiss babies, but if I'm not in a good place, the amount of effort it takes
Effort.
to do that, you're not in a good. And here's the candid moment. I've never shared this. This was me on the day of my book launch. Not in a good place. I was exhausted from the lack of sleep and staying up and the hormones and the hot flashes and all of that. I was not in a good place. And I think I was out for like 2 or 3 days after that event.
Yeah.
It
There's
takes a
days
lot
that
out of you.
you just can't do it. You don't have anything to give. You can get up and go to the bathroom, but that's about it. You're calling, Uber Eats or whatever, because there's been moments in time over these last couple of years for sure. Never been like this before in my life. I could go, 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 because I'm constantly getting poured back into. But I felt drained, and I felt like people were draining me. I felt like work was draining me. I felt like the I don't know, responsibility of entrepreneurship was draining me, right? I have people reporting to me, and I was just like, y'all gotta go. So now it's me and my VA, okay? I didn't fire them like right away or anything like that. It was more so like, let me wean you off. Let me get you actually other positions. And that's what I did. I got everybody another position, which made me feel better because I would have felt really bad. Somewhere else making more money doing still public health. But I just had these pivotal moments over these last couple of years that one, I don't want to be a boss. I want to be a boss to myself.
We're like, it's so funny when you go through something like what I explained in my podcast episode and what you're sharing and the other guests are sharing. It really makes you think about the type of life that you want to build, and if your business is in alignment with that type of life. And I came to that revelation rather, where I was like, I don't have all these direct reports. Like, I did when I was, working a 9 to 5, but I really don't want this. I also came to the revelation, I don't want to touch every deliverable, and up until that point, I was touching every deliverable. So yeah, it's so great we can learn from these lessons as well. I want to now transition to another question and ask you, what strategies or support systems help you overcome and manage your anxiety, your stress, and the burnout that you are experiencing?
So now that I believe the anxiety is one of those things that once you feel it once you've touched the light once, it now comes back, right? It's kind of like that you've turned the light on, and sometimes I'll get into a moment of like, oh, I'm feeling some type of way, my heart beating a little bit fast, and I will, in that moment, I don't care what it is that I'm doing. If I'm on the phone with someone, if it's a personal conversation, girl, I gotta go. I am feeling some type of way right now, and I need to go take a bath. I'm a self-care queen. I love incorporating self-care into my just life in general. So I don't even call it self-care because it's just kind of care now at this point, that I do on a regular basis. So I have my staple things. Like I said, I have my monthly massage. Yes, it's to manage all of that stress that does sit on my shoulders, but it's also just a time to just not talk, just relax and let somebody else, kind of rub on you and get all your anxiety and your pain and stress out. But also baths. Epsom salt is the most amazing thing in the world that they've invented. But also just techniques in my own brain, right? Just telling myself, don't let this entrepreneurship stuff kill you. Do not let this rat race called entrepreneurship kill you. Do not let other people kill you. You are literally the captain of your ship, right? I've heard a pastor say that before. It was actually it's a quote. Captain of your ship, and God is the person over your soul, right? And so for me, it's like I have to be in tune with who I am and what I'm feeling at every single moment. And the moment that I step out of that, it's bad. That's when the anxiety creeps back in. That's when the stress, that's when I'm like, oh, my shoulders feel what's happening right now. I just got done working with a healthcare company for 6 months. And I told the lady, the director, that I did this for you because I actually sit on their board, but it's now time for you to I've been an interim. It's now time for you to find somebody. I think she got used to me kind of sitting in that interim role, but I said, it's now time for you to find a permanent person because I felt myself sinking back into where I just came from. She did not
Wow.
understand anything that I was talking about, of course. I said, I have direct reports. I got rid of that out of my business. Now you got me back into it. I got rid of the stress. I got rid of daily calls. Now you got me back into it. I didn't get to take July off. Now I'm feeling some type of way, like all of these things
Now
that I
the
set up for
residual.
myself as
Yeah.
self-care things for me and my business, they brought me back into it. And she did not understand it because she's a corporate person. So she works every single day.
Wow. I love that you said that. I think that we're so accustomed to the freedom and flexibility of working when and with who and how we want.
Yeah.
When you said I just did a 6 month project, that's my sweet spot, 3 to 6
Yes.
months,
6 months.
and I find that when I do, if the contracts do work a little bit longer, I'm like, wait, this feels too much like I'm back at a 9 to 5. Like, I
And
love
that's what
y'all
I
and
felt
I
like.
love the work you're doing, but I want to go work with this health department now,
Listen,
Yes.
I was like, but y'all not even my real employees.
Right. I'm
Like,
not even really responsible for y'all. Yeah.
yes, but I felt responsible for them because they were Black women. We have that, like you said, Superwoman. They
Woman
were
said,
Black women. I saw myself in them, pieces of me at different times in my life in them, right? Obviously, I'm older. I was older than them, a little bit more mature, and been in public health longer than them. So I just felt like, oh, I'm gonna come right on in and help these ladies, help this business, help all. And I was like, hold up, you starting to act just like you just came out of. You were just delivered. And now you're bringing yourself back into it because someone reached out and said they needed your help. Again, boundaries, boundaries, boundaries.
That's one of my struggles, Alisa, because as a Black woman in business, and I'm coming up on 5 years of business, which is,
Congratulations.
like I said, major. Thank you. I want us all to win. Like, I want to share like all my lessons learned and
Yeah.
everything with as many people as possible. But I've had to tell myself, like, Quisha, you can't help everybody.
Yes.
Like there are people that God has predestined or, put me on assignment to help those
Mhm.
people. And like you said, I've had to set boundaries around what that looks like to make sure
Yeah.
that I'm not spread too thin
Right.
and I'm not, pouring myself and emptying my cup. So
Yes.
I definitely hear you there. And again, I think that has a lot to do culturally and, being a Black woman and just how we're naturally nurturers to women that look like us
We
also.
are. We are. As soon as we see someone that looks like us, we just like feel like mama bear or sister
Yeah.
bear. We have to go help sis. But
Yeah,
what I've
especially,
learned and what
yeah.
I would like to tell other entrepreneurs is that you have to find boundaries. You have to learn boundaries and be able to articulate them. It can be very hard. It can feel like you're being mean or whatever, but you're never mean to yourself when you're taking care of yourself. Your body is saying actually thank you. Your mind, your stress level, your anxiety is actually saying thank you for setting that boundary. Thank you
Yeah.
for telling that person, no, we cannot do this because we already booked, boo.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
also friendship, finding people like yourself that have been through the same thing, being able to talk about these things with other people really does take a lot of the stress and worry that we feel like we have because we feel like we have something wrong with us, right? When we're going through mental health issues within entrepreneurship. So being able to say, girl, can you talk really quick or going to brunch? I do this thing during the summer where I stop working a lot. I really just kind of the summer is my time. And I think it's, what was I called it last summer? Where I just
You were on a tour.
yes, I was on a summer
Summer
tour.
with Friends tour or something
A
like
summer
that.
with friends tour was like basically rehashing those friendships that I had not been nourishing and pouring back into, which they were nourishing and pouring back into me. So I felt like I needed to give that back. I needed to go see everybody, see everybody's kids, and see how they were doing. And that
Yeah.
brought me back. When I tell
Yeah.
you, that brought me back to life, because prior to that, I was drowning again.
Wow. I was like, this girl is somewhere seeing somebody every week. You were talking about self-care queen. You were brunch queen and
Brunch queen.
lunch queen.
But
Yeah.
I was not work queen, and I was not gala queen, and I was
Right.
not doing all the obligations. I was
Yeah.
doing things I actually
You were
wanted to
doing
do.
things that I think the word you use, nourishing, is perfect. Things
Yeah,
that fed the soul, fed the
yeah,
spirit, made you feel good, poured into you. So,
yes.
you talked about the exercise, massage, taking
Yoga, exercise.
what you say?
Yoga, exercise.
Yes, all of those things. What about therapy? Have you ever tried that?
Yeah, so during the pandemic, actually, because I was like, well, I'm gonna need some counseling. So I have all of these mental health friends. And I think I take advantage of that because I'm constantly around them. So I feel like I'm always constantly getting poured into or being told different things or whatever. But I was just like, I need to call somebody. So I reached out to my network of people and I was like, I don't want to go to y'all, obviously, right? Do you have somebody that's of color that I could just, just call? I checked with my insurance paid for it. So that was another thing. And I know that a lot of people, entrepreneurs especially, may not have insurance that pays for that part because it's still so stigmatized. But I was willing to pay out of pocket if necessary. And it really was more so of having a third party person that's not involved in your everyday life just to talk to. It was about the chiropractor. Oh, the chiropractor said this about my stress level, my anxiety, and I may have suffered from burnout and blah blah blah. So they just took that and just like, okay, let's talk about these things. And I can honestly say, because I love to let people talk, that it was therapy. And I
Mhm.
never understood that because people talk to me in the grocery stores and everywhere. And I never understood why I've had that effect on people. But I'm like, oh, maybe they see me as a calming spirit or soul or something, because that person became that calming spirit and soul to me. Now it's like a touch point. It's a touch in every now and then. But during that pandemic, honey, I needed that. I was like, I need somebody to talk to. My mama's great. My daddy's great. My friends are great. But someone who's not going to validate everything that you need them to validate for you, but somebody's
Yeah.
going to be like, no, that's not okay that that person did that to you. That's not
Mhm.
okay that the state did that to you. You should send this
Yeah.
letter, you should do this, blah blah blah. And just having that outside kind of feedback.
Non-judgmental feedback.
Non-judgment.
Yeah.
Yes. have
Yeah.
you
I love that. So I'm sorry, say that again.
have you had that experience? Have you had a therapist?
Therapist in therapy now. In therapy now, not weekly. I guess monthly. I guess you would say it's touch base, but when I was going through it, absolutely. And it may have taken me probably 3 days of not being able to get out of bed, crying, saying, okay, I got to get myself together. This is not going to work. I've
Yeah.
been in and out of therapy since my husband and I have been married 7.5 years, which probably about 8 years. So got me through my last divorce. It's
Yeah.
something my kids are no stranger to it. My husband is no stranger to it
I
at
love it.
all. I like having that outside party that doesn't know you, doesn't know your situation.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about therapy, because a lot of times, it's like a nurse, like we know how to eat and we know the stuff we're supposed to do. We don't necessarily do it right. And so a lot of times I'm like, I know it's my warped way of thinking, but
Yes.
I know she's going to give me some exercise to help me challenge all of those
Yes.
thoughts as well. I know it's my behaviors for doing X, Y, Z, but she's going to help me drill down and figure out why it's those behaviors and why I'm thinking those thoughts and why I'm doing those things. And so I personally, with what I went through, and I talked about the secondary fertility and struggles and all of that in the podcast episode. So if you haven't heard it, go back and watch
Yes.
my podcast episode that I did a couple of days ago. But I can't imagine anybody going through fertility treatments not being in therapy, and I would not recommend it because it is one of those things you have no control over. So it's best to try, especially if you are type A how, like I said earlier, overachiever. You're not used to failing. You're used to
Yes.
what I say. I'm DJ Khaled. All I do is win, 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 no matter what. And then when it comes time, it's like, oh, I did everything within my power, and it still didn't turn out right. And I can bring in the spiritual aspect of it as well. There's a lot of
Yes.
surrender and losing control involved in that process, in many processes, even in business.
Absolutely.
And if you're not the type of person that can handle that, then yes, certainly having a spiritual advisor, a
Yes.
therapist, or both has been instrumental.
And for me, the therapy that I say, it was a therapist, right? A mental health counselor that's licensed, but it was
Mhm.
also yoga, because yoga is a spiritual practice. But it was also reading my Bible and getting back into
Yes.
church.
Yeah.
Because the pandemic obviously took us all physically out of church, but I had to get back. I was like, online, hello, I'm doing everything else online. But also I had to tell myself, if you can do these meetings every week online, you can do church online. You're not giving God his time, right? So
Yeah.
I would say that was my therapy. Those three things incorporated with self-care. Those
Yeah.
are really therapy.
But you're forgetting your major thing that you do that I started doing.
What?
Writing.
Oh, absolutely.
Writing.
Absolutely. Journaling.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't like to journal. I don't like to write, period. But
Yeah.
I type.
Okay.
Yeah. And so
It's all still journaling.
it's all journaling, yeah. And yeah, I mean, I wrote some stuff that I've read to people and they're like, this needs to be in a book.
Wow.
But one thing I will say about journaling is just like therapy. So for those that are watching that haven't tried therapy before, maybe you haven't done journaling as
Yeah.
well, it makes you confront the issues that
Yes.
you're dealing with. It's not easy in the process all the time.
Yes.
It doesn't feel good all the time. And
Absolutely.
whenever I would have a therapy session, I would try to make sure my calendar is clear for that day.
Yes.
Because after you're talking and crying, you're heavy. It's like a dark cloud over you. In
No,
the
seriously.
long run, 3 or 4 sessions later, you feel good. But
Yes.
sometimes those days, or when you're in writing that journal entry, that can take a lot out of you.
I actually teach a journaling to health class. It's called Journaling to Good Health, for a mental health conference that happens here in Las Vegas every year, by a company called Solutions of Change. A good friend of mine is the CEO of that. And we've talked for years. She's a mental health therapist, getting her PhD actually right now. So we have just girlfriend conversations, but we always still teach each other. And I was just telling her about my journaling over the last 5, 6 years I've known her. And she's just like, that needs to turn into a class. We need to bring that into mental health in some type of way. And I told her, I said, I actually taught journaling to my HIV clients when I was a director of a HIV Ryan White program, because
Wow.
I took what I was doing for myself and I said, maybe these clients could actually use this. Because what I've realized is that if you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
It's not just a normal everyday thing to pick up a empty tablet, or like you said, a tablet, or an actual notebook with lines, because you feel like, what am I supposed to write? Am I writing
Right,
somebody?
right. Dear diary. Yeah. Yeah.
So men would say, oh, that's corny, that's cheesy, right? There's all these things around it, this stigma around it. But when you actually start putting pen to paper and letting yourself just journal it out, you don't understand the therapy that you're getting from that. And so
Yeah.
I teach the modalities of mental health that she's actually had to teach me to add and incorporate into that class.
Wow. Okay, sis, we're gonna have to get the virtual class. So for those of
Okay.
y'all that are watching this on YouTube, if
Yes,
you would be interested in this virtual journaling for good health, please put a comment below, because that sounds like an amazing resource for sure. Okay,
absolutely.
I want to know, have there been any specific moments in your entrepreneurial journey that stand out as turning points for you as it relates to, or kind of cause and effect from the mental health challenges that we've been talking about today?
Yeah, so I talked about pivoting. There's two major pivotal points in my business that I've had to make. One was during the pandemic, or after the pandemic, in 2022. I had to stop doing outreach. I had to, because when I say I was trying to be everything to everybody. Outreach was a really big part of my business that I didn't actually like put into my goals and the things that I wanted to do. It was kind of like one of those things where, oh, Alisa has a business now. We know her. Let's give her this outreach component. And I thank those people for those opportunities for sure. But the pandemic showed me like I'm out here in there's no hazmat suit. There's a pandemic going on out here, and I'm trying to save everybody. Who's gonna save me? But also I'm old now. When I started my business, I was 39. Now I'm like 45. I'm like, oh no. So putting your sneakers on and being out there, giving outreach, giving going to events and setting up tables and all of that. I just don't want to do it anymore. And I literally went through something with that decision. I went through some type of, I don't even know what to call it, but I journaled about it because I was trying to figure out what was it that I was feeling. And I think it was like, I was feeling a piece of my business going away. Like people have, I guess, and treasured me with this, these contracts for outreach, and now I'm going to let them down.
Almost like guilt.
Yes. Thank you for that.
There, done that, got the t-shirt.
It was guilt. It was like, but it was also fear of what contracts am I going to get now? If I take this out of my business, will people even still contract with me? And they have. Obviously, they have. I've just gone on to different things that I can do online. I can do physically in person, like teaching classes, but I don't have to be out there. Leave that for the young whippersnappers. So now when I do get some piece of outreach in a grant, because it's just a part of it, I'll tell them I don't physically do this anymore, but I will hire and contract out to some community health workers to do it. And I'll do that for, like you said, 6 months is my limit. To manage these people. But I will do that occasionally, but it's not part of my everyday business. I would also say the other time that I had to pivot, because again, it was wearing me out, was what was it? I started focusing on overall human wellness because of my business has always been like kind of what people give me. And I said, I need to be intentional and I need to start focusing on overall human wellness of people. Public health should be, how are we affecting people overall? Holistically.
Yeah.
So the 8 dimensions of wellness, for those that don't know that, look that up. 8 dimensions of wellness is a SAMHSA model for behavioral health, but also incorporating substance misuse, but also it's just a behavioral health model. But it's how do we help people in all dimensions of their life, right? We talk about social determinants of health all the time, but no one talks about these 8 dimensions, Maslow's hierarchy of needs that we need as physical, human, soul, spiritual people to be on this earth, surviving and thriving. I don't want people just to be okay. I want people to be well, and I want people to be healthy. So I pivoted my business to be more centered on that. And how does that turn into social impact?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
No, and so there is rainbow, pot of gold. What is it? Rainbow after the storm, right? Like you have these things and you have to grow. Part of it is just growing and learning and experiencing things as a CEO and as a, someone that is self-employed, but also to protect your peace.
Yes.
To protect your sanity. And that's where I'm at right now. It's like, there is no price on my peace.
My grandmother used to say all the time, I just want my peace. And I was a kid, I was a little kid. And I used to be like, what is grandma talking about? What? Now I think back to her all the time because I'm like, my grandmother used to always talk about peace. I did not know what peace was until these last couple of years. And that's
I'm telling you, you hit 40, it's like 40 and everything clicks.
40 is like, I'm not putting up with anything that disturbs my peace. And disturbs can be your work. It can be people in your life. It could be situations that you were used to dealing with. Now you just don't want to deal with them anymore. It could be having direct reports. It could be parts of your business that you just don't like anymore. It is okay to pivot. It is okay to change your mind. And it is okay to be authentically yourself.
Yeah, I love that. So this has been such a great conversation. I'm so excited for the rest of the conversations that the viewers and listeners are going to hear over the next few weeks. I want to say this just laid in my spirit. I actually heard Sarah Jakes Roberts say this at the Woman Evolve conference at business luncheon. And so I know if you're watching or listening, you may still be working in corporate or still be working in the health department. I want to say some people are called for corporate America. Okay. Let me say that these conversations are intentionally, I personally invited people that were self-employed, public health entrepreneurs, healthcare consultants, etc., because this is where I'm at. And so we're sharing our experiences of running a business and dealing with mental health challenges and how we've overcome those. It can still apply to you in your situation. So I just wanted to provide that because I didn't do it beforehand. I just wanted to make sure that if you're listening, you understand that. Okay. And I also want to give this caveat because say that again.
I'm not gonna be a corporate person for the rest of my life. God called me into entrepreneurship. So just like
there you go. Right. And so, there one is not better than the other. Everybody doesn't do entrepreneurship. Everybody doesn't climb the corporate ladder. So I know a lot of people that I talk to, they really struggle. I want to go to this business for myself. I have no idea what I want to do. I just want to work for myself because it's all the rage, because everybody's doing it, or it seems like it, right? But it's not easy. And as you can tell from these conversations and the next ones that will be published, it is not easy. And it does come with a lot of sacrifice. And unfortunately, sometimes that sacrifice is your mental health.
Yes.
A lot of times that sacrifice is your mental health. Before we wrap up, I got two more questions I want to ask you, Alisa. The first question is, what are 2 to 3 key takeaways you want the viewers and listeners to remember about this episode?
I want people to know that you are enough, and that the way that we are in this world now with social media and with everybody wanting to be entrepreneurs, just like Risha said, if you are not called to entrepreneurship, it may just be something you want to do. Try it out on the side first. Try it out on the side of your corporate business. Make sure you're still getting that money coming in. Entrepreneurship is it's hard. It tests you. It tests everything in you. And if you're not ready to be tested, you may not be ready for the whole gamut of it. So just try it out on the side of your business or your side of your corporate world first. Yeah. I would also say that don't let this rat race called entrepreneurship, if you are already an entrepreneur, kill you. I think that we don't use that word enough. People die of bad health, whether that came physically, whether that came mentally, whether that manifested all into one big bundle. Heart attacks and strokes are manifestations of the things that we go through in this journey. And don't let this rat race, trying to keep up with everybody, trying to be seen all the time, trying to post everything so that everybody knows what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, I heard this from Maria Forleo. No one really cares. No one really cares. We all think that people care because they liking it or they may be making comments on it. But at the end of the day, when they stop that comment or they do that they don't care. So you have to care about yourself. And I would just say, take care of you so that you can take care of others. And that includes your family. That includes the people who are right underneath you. Sometimes we miss them and we take advantage of them being there and being our backup for us. But I would actually say pour more into your family. You'll get more out of that than you will other people, wanting other people to pour into you. And so entrepreneurship is a blessing and it's a curse. And at the end of the day, it can affect your mental health, but let it affect you in a positive way.
Positive way. Love it. Love it. Why do they call you the accidental public health advocate?
So funny story. I never thought about health ever. The word health, in my college years and just in general growing up, I thought of blood. I thought of health as nurses, doctors, blood, medical. I never even knew about public health. When I went to college, no one ever talked about public health. There weren't anything going on pandemic wise. So you never heard about public health, and especially in the Black community. So I never knew it was even a field. I came from the legal field. I wanted to be a lawyer. I still might actually do something around that area, but I was a paralegal for 3 years. I went to school for 2 years, became a paralegal, thought I was going to go from that to law school. And then I realized this is not what God would have me to do. This is not, this is not how I want to help people, but it took me into to be 25, sitting in my law office desk job, 3rd year, and saying there has to be more to helping people than this. Yes, I'm basically getting people to their divorce. But that's not what I want to do. I don't want to help people with their divorce. Writing these legal documents and helping the lawyer. All I'm doing is helping the lawyer write these documents, get this to the courthouse. If I would have known more about civil rights law back then, I probably would have stayed in law, but because I did not, I was like, I have to go. So I went back to school and I majored in psychology because I said, what's the culmination of everything that I love? You know, I love talking to people. I love trying to figure things out. So I majored in psychology. And then I ended up getting my first public health job accidentally from a friend saying, I know you're in school full time. Do you want a part-time job at the, it was called OFI, Office of Public Health, Informatics, and Epidemiology. My first question was, is there blood involved? She said, girl, no, we are in an office.
Hilarious.
I tell everybody that story because that's the first question I asked, because that's what I thought health was. I never knew there was this other side that you could actually help. And I think that's where I say, you are called to the things that God has alignment for you. Find that alignment, ask for that alignment, pray for that alignment, because he will direct your path. And it may be something totally different than what you've ever thought about or dreamed of.
I love it. Love it. This has been such a rich discussion. Where can people follow you if they want to connect with you and just find out more about your business and even maybe ask you some questions offline?
Yeah, I'm on all the things. I'm on, just recently joined Threads. I don't understand that platform, but I'm on there as one Alisa Howard on Twitter and also on Instagram, and then just Alisa Howard on LinkedIn. And they can follow Minority Health Consultants on Facebook and Instagram.
And your website?
Is AlisaHoward.com. So ALISA.Howard, HOWARD.com.
Awesome. And we'll put all those in the show notes as well. This has been great. Thank you again. And I hope to have you on a future episode of the Public Healthpreneur Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Thank you.